Hello and welcome to you all. Here we are to discuss something about the microbes at our Drishti YouTube channel. We'll have a brief discussion only, and we'll see that how microbes are actually behaving as far as this universe is concerned. As far as the study of microbes is concerned, that is called as microbiology. So under this microbiology, we discuss each and every aspect of microbes. This microbiology, if you remember, it all started in the year 1683 when a man from, you may call Holland, Netherlands, and he was named as A. von Leeuwenhoek. In the year 1683, I told you that he actually discovered the bacteria. And that's why, as far as the microbiology is concerned, which actually studies this microbe, Leeuwenhoek is considered as father of microbiology as well. Now the question is, what do you mean by microbes? As we all know that microbes are supposed to be unicellular generally. There may be certain type of microbes which can be multicellular as well. Then mostly they are unicellular only. For example, the bacteria. For example, the cyanobacteria. For example, the protozoans, amoeba, etc. And whenever we are talking about the unicellular organisms, of course, you cannot be in a position to see them with your naked eyes. In order to investigate about them, in order to see them out, of course, you require some sort of microscopes. Earlier, it was simple microscope only. And you remember that simple microscope was made firstly in the year 1665 by Robert Hooke. Then came the compound microscope, having more resolution, more power. And then finally, in order to study cytology, of course, there was electron microscope as well. The beauty of electron microscope is that it can see any of the physical objects almost 1,86,000, 1,80,000 times magnified. So as far as the microbiology is concerned, this is all about the microbes only. You can take some of the examples. Viruses. The beauty of the virus is that they don't have any cell. And here, as far as the concept of life is concerned, that has totally been changed. Because earlier we are of the view that where there is a cell, there is the life. But after the advent of these viruses in the year 1892, of course, and the man was Dmitry Ivanovsky. He hails from Russia. And he said that these organisms, viruses, they don't have any cell. So earlier we are having the concept of life, biological concept of life, was that if there be life, there would be cell also. But when the viruses came into fore, of course, this concept of life was totally changed. And that's why it all changed the very perspective of the microbiology as well. Now the question is, in what way we can define life? Because in early days, we are very much comfortable to say that if life is there, that means the cell is there. But when you come to these viruses, which don't have any kind of cells, of course, that means the early concept of life has to be changed. And of course, it changed. And that's why the shape of the microbiology also changed. So now I can tell you at the very onset, I can tell you one thing, that biological science has advanced so much so good. But even then, we are not in a position to define life in its exact form. Philosophically, you can define life. Socially, you can define life. But as far as the biological definition of life is concerned, it's not become as yet. Because there are certain types of symptoms which are associated with the life. And those symptoms are actually confined to two of the materials only, two of the matters only. One is the presence of protein, and the other one is the presence of the nucleic acid. Because when we are talking about the viruses, remember, viruses do have these two materials only. They don't have any cell. They are non-cellular, in fact. But these viruses, they are having a congregation of both these materials, I mean proteins and the nucleic acid. So biologically, we can say only one thing, that although life cannot be defined in its correct sense, but we can give some sort of symptoms of the life. And the symptoms of the life are, there must be the presence of proteins, and there must be the presence of nucleic acid. And this whole idea actually changed the very perspective of the sense of microbiology. And of course, it revolutionized the whole of the medical sciences as well. Anyway, as far as the viruses are concerned, I told you, they are actually non-cellular. That's why I specific. Then, of course, bacteria, I told you, they were discovered way back in 1683 by Leeuwenhoek, of course. So, Alexander von Leeuwenhoek. And they are actually unicellular. Then, of course, algae, they may be unicellular. They may be multicellular as well. And remember, they are basically plants only. These bacteria are also supposed to be the plants because they are having cell wall. As far as the viruses are concerned, remember, they are neither the plants nor the animals. In fact, they have been put as a connecting link between the plants and the animals. In fact, they have been put as a connective link between the living and non-living things as well. Because we are not pretty sure that whether they are the organisms or not. There are certain symptoms attached with the viruses which suggest that they can be non-living as well. But there are certain symptoms or certain characteristics attached to them which suggest that, of course, they are the organisms. And that's why we can say that they are basically a connecting link between the living beings and the non-living beings. As for the fungi are concerned, they are also maybe unicellular, maybe multicellular. Of course, they are plants only. Protozoans or protista, remember, they may be called as protista as well. They all are actually unicellular animals. For example, you can take the example of amoeba, You can take the example of paramecium. Even you can take the example of euglena, or even plasmodium, like that of malarial parasite. This euglena is important in the sense that, as I told you, that as far as the viruses are concerned, they are having certain characteristics pertaining to the livings, and at the same time certain characteristics pertaining to the non-livings. Similarly, if you look into the euglena, you can find that they are having certain characteristics attached to the plants, and at the same time certain characteristics attached to the animals. And that's why euglena, although they are the animals, of course, but they are supposed to be the connecting link between the plants and the animals. So the uniqueness of these euglena is that they are supposed to be a connecting link between the plants and the animals. Why they are the plants? They are the plants because they are having the green pigment, that is chlorophyll. And we all know that if a plant is there, only the plants are having this green pigment, I mean the chlorophyll molecules. So on that basis, this euglena can be called as a plant. But at the same time, if they are the plants, if they are having the chlorophyll molecules, if they can go for synthesizing their own food by the process of photosynthesis, what's the need to keep them as the animals, to keep them into the category of the animals, rather to keep it into the plant category only? The thing is that we have to visualize one thing here, that although the euglena are having the chlorophyll molecules, although they are photosynthetic in nature, although they can synthesize their own food, but even then, if they have been not put as the plant community, under the plant community, it is only because of the fact that they are having the flagella for locomotion, for displacement. And we all know that plants cannot displace themselves. It is the animal which can displace it because it may have some locomotion devices or locomotion organs. So these euglena, since they are having the flagella through which they can go for the process of locomotion, through which they can displace themselves, that's why they have been put under the category of animals only and not under the category of plants. Now, when we see that all these microbes, which are actually microscopic in nature, which are generally unicellular or maybe multicellular, some of them, but after all, they are the organisms only. And when you say organisms, of course, the organisms may be either the plants or the animals. There is not third category of organisms. So here what we have to perceive, that when you say organisms, you have to visualize one thing, that is, they may be the plants and of course they may be the animals. Whatever the scientists have discovered so far, different species of organisms, that is almost 17 lakh or 17.5 lakhs, you can say. And it is estimated, it has been estimated, you can say, that there are almost 80 lakh species of organisms which are present in our universe. Even that would be more than that. So if out of 80 lakh or so, whatever the species or whatever the kind of species are present into this universe, if we have collect the information of almost 17.5 lakh or 18 lakh, you can say, that means one thing is very much clear, that there are many more species which are yet to come, which about which we are not knowing even a single thing. So as far as the plant communities are concerned, we can say that almost 5 lakh plant species are there which have been discovered so far by the scientists. And similarly, if you go for the animals, you can find that there are almost 20.5 lakh of species of animals that has already been discovered. So altogether, we can say that there are almost 17.5 lakh of species which have already been discovered by the scientists. But many more things is to be done, because almost, I told you that the very presence of organisms in this universe is supposed to be almost 80 lakh or even more. Now, when you say organisms, different types of classifications have been taken so far for these organisms. But the man who classified it, of course, you can't say man, they were actually two scientists from the USA. They were called as Margolis and Schwartz. These two scientists, they actually classified the whole of the organisms in the year 1988 in two groups. So broadly speaking, we can say that the organisms can be classified into two groups. Let's go for that. So as far as all the organisms are concerned, or all the plants and animals are concerned in this universe, remember, these organisms can be classified, and this classification is based on the various study of Margolis and Schwartz. They hail from USA, and they actually classified this in the year 1988. So as per their description, the organisms can be classified broadly into two groups. Let's go for that. The first one they call as the prokaryotes, and the second one they call them as eukaryotes. Let's go through the kind of significances attached with both these types of organisms, I mean prokaryotes and then eukaryotes. Let's go first for them. We all know that barring these viruses, because they don't have the cell, but other than the viruses, whatever the kind of organisms are there, maybe the plants or the animals, they must have at least one cell. And within that cell, we all know that there is a central part, and that central part is actually called as nucleus. So, what kind of nuclear material is there? Whether that nuclear material is totally distinctive or not, based on that only, these two people actually classified the organisms. So, what I'm trying to say that just going over here, suppose any organism is there, so it must have at least one cell, and the cell is having two main components. One, of course, is the central part, and this central part is basically called as nucleus. This nucleus was discovered by Robert Brown in the year 1938. Other than this, central part, whatever the rest of the component is there, which is being represented here by X, suppose, that would be called as cytoplasm. So what I am trying to say, that if you take the composition of both these two, I mean cytoplasm plus nucleus, you can say that that is basically the cell. Now just imagine one thing. Here in this case, in this diagram, you can locate the nucleus, where exactly the nucleus is there. And you can locate this nucleus only because of one of the components of the nucleus. And that is nothing but this surrounding, remember. This surrounding, as you know, is actually called as the membrane for that nucleus, and that's why it is called as nuclear membrane. If this nuclear membrane is present in any of the cells, you can easily distinguish that, okay, this is the nuclear part and this is actually the cytoplasmic part. But what would happen if there is no nuclear wall, membrane as such? So if the nuclear wall is absent, if the nuclear membrane is absent, that means you cannot distinguish that, well, this is the part of the nucleus and this is the part of cytoplasm. So because of this nuclear wall only, because of this nuclear membrane only, we are in a position to say that this is the nuclear part and this is the cytoplasmic part to any of the organisms. As far as the prokaryotes are concerned, it has been classified on the basis of the presence of whether the nuclear membrane is there or not. If the nuclear membrane is not there, remember, they would be called as prokaryotes only. And if the nuclear membrane is there, that means they would be called as, the eukaryotes. So first and foremost distinction between these two would be that I'm taking the first one, the nuclear membrane is absent, remember. And as far as the eukaryotes are concerned, we can say that this nuclear membrane is actually present. So the nuclear membrane is present in the case of the eukaryotes. Now, as I told you, that if the nuclear membrane is there, just look at here again. So if the nuclear membrane is present over there, that means we all know that within the nucleus, the genetic material is there. That is called as DNA. So within this nucleus only, we are having the genetic material, that is DNA. So as far as the eukaryotes are concerned, which are having this nuclear membrane, so if any nuclear membrane is present, you can say that there is a full-fledged nucleus. So as far as the eukaryotes are concerned, we can say that they actually are having a full-fledged nucleus as well. But in the case of prokaryotes, if you remember, since there is no nuclear membrane, like this, they are having the cell, no doubt. So these are for the prokaryotes only. And as far as the nuclear membrane is concerned, it is actually, this is actually the cytoplasm, remember. But as far as the nuclear membrane is concerned, either it is totally absent, or you can say that they are actually in the primitive phase only. This primitive phase of nuclear membrane or nucleus is actually called as incipient type of nucleus. That means if a nuclear membrane is there, then only you can distinguish that a kind of nucleus is there. And that nuclear membrane, that nucleus is actually one of the significant part of the eukaryotes. But for the prokaryotes are concerned, since there is no nuclear membrane as such, so we can say that they are having not a fully fledged nucleus, rather they are having an incipient type of nucleus only. So the second classification which we can take over here, we can say that possess only an incipient nucleus, and of course if you compare them, you can say that possess a fully developed nucleus. Okay. Now the third one. If such type of incipient nucleus is there with the prokaryotes, you can say one more thing. We all know that within the nucleus, the DNA is there, genetic material is there. So if there is no fully fledged nucleus, can you say that the nuclear material, I mean the genetic material DNA is not over there? You cannot say that. So the genetic material is there. Genetic material must be there. But remember, the genetic material are not supposed to be confined within the nucleus as far as the prokaryotes are concerned. Those genetic materials, they are actually very much confined within the nucleus into the case of eukaryotes. But in the case of prokaryotes, you can say that since they are having only an incipient type of nucleus, so there is no question of confining these genetic materials within the nucleus. Now the question is, where exactly they are? That means whatever the genetic materials are there with the prokaryotes, remember they are actually floating into the cytoplasm, and that's why they are called as prokaryotes. So as far as the prokaryotic organisms are concerned, remember 2 or 3 main characteristics are there. One, of course, is they don't have the nuclear membrane. And since they don't have the nuclear membrane, that's why you cannot distinguish the kind of nucleus within the cell. But that doesn't mean that if they don't have the nuclear membrane, they don't have the fully fledged nucleus. That doesn't imply the sense that there is no genetic material at all. Of course, genetic material will be there. Of course, DNA would be there. But remember, that would be floating into the cytoplasm only. So the third characteristics which we can take over here, we can say that the genetic material is not confined within the nucleus, rather would be floating into the cytoplasm. But as for the prokaryotes are concerned, you can say surely that obviously there will be the genetic material, but that genetic material is not only present over there, but also they are actually confined with the nucleus. So the genetic material is confined within the nucleus itself. If you have to take the examples, you can say that other than prokaryotes, whatever the kind of organisms are there, they would come under the eukaryotes. So simply speaking, other than the prokaryotes, whatever are there, whatever the kind of organisms are there, they would come under the eukaryotes. So obviously here you can say, for example, like the examples of the prokaryotes are concerned, we are just putting some light onto that part. The very first, I told you that bacteria is prokaryotes. So bacteria, of course, they are unicellular. Then of course, the cyanobacteria. Generally, the bacteria are actually, we are talking about the classical bacteria, remember, which are unicellular, of course, and not only unicellular, but also since they don't have the chlorophyll molecules, so they are actually the parasites. They cannot synthesize their own food. So actually, they are actually not autotrophic. They cannot synthesize their own food because of the absence of the chlorophyll molecule. So not autotrophic. So obviously they are the parasites. And since they are parasites, so obviously they may be harmful. They may be useful too, of course. And as far as the cyanobacteria is concerned, this cyano means can utilize the sunlight. And if they can utilize the sunlight, of course, they are having the chlorophyll molecules. So with the help of chlorophyll molecule, the green pigment, remember, that is called as chlorophyll, and because of that only photosynthesis become possible. So these are the bacteria, these are the prokaryotes which can synthesize their own food, and that's why they would be called as autotrophic, not like that of the bacteria. So they are actually autotrophic. That means they can go for the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Another type of bacteria are also there under the prokaryotes, and they are called as actinomycetes. So they are actinomycetes. When you say actinomycetes, that means there are some specific category of bacteria which are filaments, so that they can go for locomotion, and that's why they would be called as filamentous bacteria. That means they are having filaments for locomotion, and that's why they are motile. They can move. For example, these filamentous bacteria, the biological term for them is actinomycetes. So you have to remember this one, the filamentous bacteria which are having filaments for locomotion. They are the motile bacteria, remember, because of that filament. And of course, biologically they are called as actinomycetes. In biological terms, they are actually actinomycetes. We can take some of the examples, and the very first example which comes into my mind is archaebacteria. These bacteria are supposed to contribute into the menace of global warming, because these bacteria, when they go for their digestion, when they go for their digestive process, of course they take soil. In fact, they take carbon from the soil, and due to the digestion process into them, they release actually one of the gases, and that gas is actually a greenhouse gas. We all know that is actually methane gas, and that's why these type of bacteria, they are generally found in moist areas only, in swampy lands only. So these archaebacteria, I told you that they actually release methane. We all know the formula for the methane is CH4, and this methane, we all know, they release methane while going for the process of digestion only. And as far as the methane is concerned, we all know that this is actually a potent greenhouse gas. And if there be any greenhouse gas which is coming into our atmosphere, which is coming into our environment, obviously that would contribute to the menace of global warming. So that means that would definitely bring global warming. So that would enhance the prospects of global warming. In that way, they are not supposed to be good. If you take another example here, that would be all about the streptomyces. They are also actinomycetes. They are also filamentous bacteria. And as far as these streptomyces is concerned, remember they actually provide you one of the antibiotics that is called a streptomycin. So they are useful to us because they can provide an antibiotic and that antibiotic, remember, is actually called as streptomycin. So on this basis, we can have a categorization of prokaryotes and then eukaryotes. So the organisms can be classified into two, that is prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now, if you we can take some description about the viruses here. As I told you, that they are supposed to be the smallest organism. So if anyone asks you that which one is the smallest organism, of course you will have to take the name of this virus. But remember, they are not cellular. So here you can see the kind of culture. We can see the kind of prospects of the questions which may be here. If someone asks you that which one is the smallest organisms of the universe, obviously your option would be none other than viruses. So no problem, that should be your answer. But suppose they are just twisting the question now. Just look at here. Which one is the smallest cellular organism of the universe? Now your option would be something different because this term cellular has been put over there. So of all the organisms, of course, viruses are the smallest one. And that's why in the first case, your option would be viruses. But if you look into the real language of the second question, the question says that which one is the smallest cellular organism? And we all know that viruses are not cellular. They are not supposed to be cellular in nature. They are actually non-cellular only. So when they put the term cellular over there, and then they are asking about the smallest organism, naturally, your answer now would not be viruses, but rather it would be bacteria only. So obviously, in this case, your answer would be bacteria. And in fact, which type of bacteria are the smallest one? Remember, those type of bacteria which are actually called as scotobacteria, they are actually mycoplasma. So mycoplasma are supposed to be mycoplasma, which are basically the bacteria only. They are actually one specific type of bacteria. They are called as the scotobacteria, remember? They are actually the scotobacteria. So they are supposed to be the smallest one. So we can say that as per size, the viruses are the smallest one. Then the mycoplasma. So they are actually the smallest cellular organism. And then only the classical type of bacteria, that is the parasitic bacteria, you can say. So viruses are non-cellular. Viruses are smallest organisms. Here it is. They are non-cellular. They don't have any cell. Now the question is, if they don't have the cell, what exactly they are having? So I told you, they are only having a mass, and their mass is actually called as virion. So viruses don't have any cell only having the mass of, I told you, proteins and nucleic acid. And remember, this protein and nucleic acid, that is actually called as variant. And remember, this also employs the correct explanation to life. And of course, this explanation, as I told you, has changed the whole concept of our microbiology. And in fact, this has revolutionized the whole of the medical sciences. In what way the microbes can influence us? But remember one word, they are actually cosmopolitan in nature. Wherever we may go, we can be in the space, we can into the hydrosphere, we can onto the lithosphere, we can into the atmosphere, you can find those microbes. So with this, we are ending up this edition, the special edition of our YouTube channel. Thank you.